Good evening, guys, and welcome back to another collab for Accounting 1A. So this evening is a very specific collab that we have in, and that's because this is our NSS National Support Session for your first assignment. So what I'm going to cover this evening is just some background information, some hints and tips, going through the questions to clarify them and make sure that you guys are interpreting the question correctly and that you know all the different traps in all the different questions to look out for. Purpose of this is to help you find the information you need to complete your assignment as quickly and efficiently as possible, and to help you answer those questions as accurately as possible so that you guys can get the best possible marks for this assignment. Okay, so this is being recorded and it's available for everybody afterwards. So I'm going to try not to waffle on too much so that the recording is not too long and involved, but at the same time with covering everything that needs to be covered. Okay, doke. So on the screen is just a reminder: assignment 1 counts for 25% of your module mark. And that it covers learning units 1 to 4. So those are the 4 learning units that you should cover or should have covered by basically today, where we are. Let me just double check the exact timeline. We are the 19th of April today, and your assignment is due in on the 28th of April, which is next week, Friday. So just over a week, your assignment must be due. So this week and a little bit from today up until the 28th of April, you should now be working on the assignment itself. So up until today, you should have covered those 4 learning units. So again, just to remind you, give you a little bit of a reminder of exactly where we are. We are in this week that we are in now is week 8 of the semester. Let me just pop that in the chat box over here. Week 8 of the semester, which means that we are actually exactly halfway through the weeks leading up to the exam. So we've got basically 16 weeks from start of semester until when exams start. And so 8 of those weeks have now passed. Okay, so immediately we finish this assignment, we'll put our sights and our focus on assignment 2 and get you working towards those next 2 learning units for that. And then after that, we'll do exam revision using past papers, etc., any other help that you need to prepare you for the exams. All right, so that just orientates you guys to what you're doing. And then I mustn't forget to remind you also, please do not forget your ICE tasks, the 4 ICE tasks that you must do. Just quickly popping this other document up on screen so I don't lose my concentration. Okay, and again in the chat box, I'm just going to put here, remember ICE tasks. And remember that due date, which is the due date for all of the ICE tasks. All of them have got to be finished by the 26th of May at the absolute latest. That's the latest date. That's already stretching it because we've already been told by National Office we have to get those ICE marks into them and uploaded, and they want them uploaded by the 26th of May. So I'm going to have to work super hard. That 26th of May is a Friday. I'm going to have to work super hard that weekend so that the marks are ready for the National Office on the Monday, what will that be, the Monday, the 29th of May. Okay, so there can be no extensions on that 26th of May ICE dates, absolutely at all, and that's not in my hands. Okay, so then the document that you can see on the screen now, this is the one that I call the assignment brief. And this is just so that you know what the document's name is when you are referring to it, where I've uploaded the documents. And I will upload this document together with the next one, which is called the lesson plan, into your announcements where I let you know about this recording as well. So these documents that are on the screen now, you will be able to download from the announcements. Okay, so this one over here, I'm not going to spend too much time on it because you'll be able to download it and read it, but it is very important. It's not just a piece of paper to while away the time. This is more or less technical information that you need to read and remember about preparing and uploading the assignment. So just to remind you, it is the first 4 learning units you're going to cover. Most important thing for me on this page, top most important, is that it must be a PDF file that you upload, not a Word document. So you can complete your assignment in Word or you can handwrite it, whichever is your preference, but it has to be one complete PDF file in the correct page order that has to be uploaded to the assignment link, because I have to have a PDF file for marking purposes. Okay, so the rest of this information on this paragraph you can read through. That's all about how to go about sorting out your PDF file. Then the next one over here is about submitting the assignment itself. And I will, if we've got time, just go and give you a quick run through on Learn to show you exactly where to find that submission link so that you don't get lost and miss that. So when you log on to your module, your main menu down the left-hand side of the screen as you log on, you will see that there's a little sub-menu called Assessment Submission. And underneath that menu, there are 2 important links. One says Integrity Declaration, and the other one says Submission Links. So the first thing that you have to do is click on the Integrity Declaration and go and accept that. That is basically just stating that all the work in the assignment is your own and you haven't copied from anybody and you haven't plagiarized. The system won't allow you to upload or attach a document to submission links option if you have not first accepted the integrity declaration. So if you're trying to upload your assignment and you're getting errors and you're panicking, just remind yourself, did I accept the integrity declaration first? And go and double check that, and then it will allow you through to upload your assignment to the submission links document, to the submission links upload option. And then the third thing that's important, that I often get questions from the students, even though I tell them all the time, they do just tend to panic if they see this. You can ignore any similarity report that you receive from SafeAssign, because this is not applicable to numeric modules where you have uploaded things like journals and numeric tables and that type of thing, because these assignments are not essay type questions that can be plagiarized off the internet. That being said, if I do pick up that students have copied from each other, and it's quite easy to pick that up if they have done that, that falls under cheating, and that is obviously not plagiarism, but cheating, and that will also go through to the disciplinary committee if it is picked up. So that won't show on a similarity report. That would be picked up in the marking of the assignments. Okay, so the report that comes from SafeAssign online, the percentage similarity, etc., just ignore that report. And this might sound dumb, but it's just to remind you guys that the deadline time is 9 p.m. and that is the cut-off time on the due date, which means that if you upload at 9 p.m. and 30 seconds past 9 p.m., that assignment is officially, according to the system, late. The upload has to be complete before 9 p.m. 9 p.m., the system cuts off and your assignment is late. If untoward circumstances do happen and you haven't been able to upload or some technical issues occurred, you have to apply on your Student Hub for permission for a late submission, and I have to be advised by the National Office that they have approved that late submission request before I'm allowed to mark the assignment. Okay, so please watch the time and make sure that it is uploaded. If the reason for you not being able to upload is some kind of a technical issue, there's a system problem or Wi-Fi or something else that went technically wrong, or your computer bombed out, then what you need to do is you need to take screenshots of exactly what's happened for proof. Make sure that the timestamp at the bottom of your screen is included so we can see you were trying to upload before the 9 p.m. cutoff. And then you attach those proof documents to the ticket that you must then log with VC Assist to explain what happened, to state that your assignment was late and to request permission to upload it late, or permission for me to mark it. Okay, so those are kind of like housekeeping issues, but they're on this document for a reason, because they are the things that are most likely to happen, and the students do encounter this, and these are the issues that you are likely to have from a technical point of view regarding your assignment. Okay, so that document, assignment brief, it will be uploaded and will be available to you guys in your announcements. I'll either upload them tomorrow or Friday, but by the end of the week they will be available to you there. Okay, then the next document that we're going to take a look at is called the lesson plan. So this will be the file name when you are looking at the assignment. Let me just write that also into the chat box. So this is called the lesson plan. And this document is just a small summary, question by question, that I have compiled for you, with some hints and tips of places that you can go in your textbook and your material to look for the help that you need to answer that specific question. Okay, all right, so just give me 1 second before we go through this document. All right, so your due date for this assignment is the 28th of April prior to 9 p.m. Your assignment must be submitted as a PDF document, one PDF document. Okay, see your assignment brief for all of those technical details. So first off, what we must talk about then is referencing. So referencing, as you guys know, you are academic students now in tertiary education, and referencing is required in academics. So even though this is a numeric module, you will still be required to reference any questions that require you to look up information in your textbooks or online and to write a paragraph or a couple of sentences about them. So anything that asks for a description or explain or a definition, any question like that has to be referenced in the correct Harvard referencing manner as per VC, which you've had, I'm sure, training on already. And there's lots of access to that referencing information on your student hub, on the front page of all of your modules, etc. Okay. So all usual conventions for referencing and plagiarism do apply. And if you don't reference your assignment where required, I am obliged to deduct 5% off your mark. So we'll mark the assignment, and then from the final mark, I will have to subtract 5% if there is no referencing and no reference list or bibliography included at the end. Okay, so just get into these good habits that anything that you submit now in academics, you must treat as a proper academic paper and reference it in the correct manner. So these little bits over here in this blue square, I've included these here because these are the places where the students most often lose marks, and unnecessarily if you just follow some strict rules and be very disciplined with yourself. So the first thing is the referencing. The second thing is that in all of the questions, they give you a scenario or a table or whatever it happens to be, and then they will explain what action they require from you. So the question at the end, it will state required, and then it will describe, okay, this is what we want you to do. There is a huge amount of marks lost in every assignment because students have not read and followed those instructions in the required very carefully. The way that the question is worded and phrased is very important. They are asking you to answer the question in a specific way, and you must pay attention to that and answer the question in the manner in which it was asked. Okay? Double check when you are doing your answer that you are doing that, and that your answer that's down on the paper is exactly what was asked for. Go, and after you've written, go and reread the question, look at your answer and say, if I was marking this, what I've written here, is that what they actually asked me? Don't leave anything out. Make sure that you've checked all places where it says, first calculate this and then comment, or write this down and then tell me whatever it happens to be. Okay. This is also very important. I've marked a couple of assignments recently, and there were students in both of them that lost marks because they did not show their workings. So any workings or calculations that you've got to do to get to an answer, you must write those down somewhere on your answer sheet, because I can use them to give you method marks. So we use the method marking, also known as, some students refer to as the work with method of marking. That means, let's say your final answer to a numeric question is incorrect because you made an error somewhere, in either used an incorrect amount or you did an incorrect calculation. So the way it works is that at the point where you made the error, you will lose the mark there where the error was made. But then if you have had to carry that incorrect amount or calculation down further on to carry on with a problem or a calculation or a presentation, you won't lose any further marks, as long as the method that you are following for the calculation or the presentation is correct. But if you don't show your workings and all you do is you just write down that final incorrect answer, then I have got no opportunity to give you and award you those method marks, because your workings aren't there for me to award the marks to. Okay. And then for paragraph type questions, always look at the number of marks allocated to that question as a guideline for how much information to give me in your answer. Go again and double check. When you've written the answer down, reread the question, look at the number of marks, look at your answer and say, okay, if it's for 4 marks, have I given ma'am 4 different facts here in this answer that she can give me 4 marks for this question? Okay, so be very careful about that. These are easy places to lose marks, and these are also easy places that if you pay attention to all of this, that you can bump your assignment mark up nicely and make sure that you get a decent mark, just by being careful, paying attention to your housekeeping. And also attention to detail and rereading and double checking. Those are all important things in accounting anyway. Okay, so now we are going to have a look at the individual questions. Just sort out my desk here, all my papers, just 1 second. Okay, so question 1 is for 25 marks. And this question is on Learning Unit 1. So by now, hopefully you have already gone through your textbook and you've done all of your reading and studying and practicing of your examples and your questions. But for this question, you need to go and read the information in LU1 intro. And these are important sections in the textbook for this particular question, section 1.2 in the textbook. So take note, this is following sections in your textbooks. Section 1.2, users with the ERS and uses with the ES at the end of financial information on page 4. So read that and make sure you understand it. And then also section 1.4 in your textbooks, that whole section on the different business forms that starts on page 10 in your textbook. So that's not the only sections, but those are important sections for this question 1. So I put that there also just to help you to save time and that you can quickly find the place in your book where you need to go and look to find the information for this question. So for question 1.1, there's a table that they've given you with 3 columns that you must fill in. So you must duplicate this table on your answer sheet. And for instance, the first, and then under aspect, you have got 5 different aspects. And for each of those 5 aspects, you must give detail or a description of that aspect as it pertains to a sole trader and as it pertains to a partnership and as it pertains to a for-profit company. A for-profit company is like a PTY Limited or a CC or a limited company. So the important thing here that I want to just make sure the students understand is that for each of those 5 aspects, you need to fill something in all 3 columns. Okay, because they are asked, it's a comparative question, it's a comparison table for the 3 types of business form mentioned. So for instance, for legal personality, they want to test whether you know how legal personality pertains to a sole trader, to a partnership, and to a profit company. So obviously your table is going to use more space than they've got on this little table on the question paper. So you can compile your own table with as much space as you need for each of those 3 sections. Okay, so again, follow the instructions carefully and fill in the table. There must be something filled in each of the 3 columns for each item listed under aspect. It's a comparison table for the 3 types of business form mentioned. We will take a look at the question paper in a minute. I'll bring it up on screen and then we can have a look at that again. But I'm just going through this document here so that you can get an idea of what information I've given you on this document. Then for question 1.2, again, read the question, the required part of the question, as well as the scenario very carefully and make sure you understand what they're asking you and that you are answering what was asked and then answer the questions. Again, take note of the number of marks allocated to the question and write sufficient information for that number of marks. It's for 10 marks, so take note of that. Students must use your own words. In other words, you can't just type stuff straight out of the textbook or straight off the internet. Whatever you write down must be in your own wording and understanding. You can paraphrase if you need to. And what you write down must demonstrate that you do understand, must demonstrate an understanding of the required. And most importantly, your answer must relate back to the case study in the question. Again, if you just write down stuff straight out of the textbook, you won't have answered the question. So look at the wording of the required very carefully. This is important. This question, the whole of this question 1, you must reference this question. Okay, these are 2, or the whole of question 1 is theory questions, which means you're going to have to consult textbooks or online sources, which means you must reference them. So that means every paragraph, each place where you've used a different reference, you need to place your reference there, or at least at the end of each paragraph. Just go and revise your referencing methods so that you know what to do. Okay, and again, we will take a look at the paper itself in a minute. So we can look at the actual wording of the question in more detail. Then for question 2, in this one, they've given you a nice long table, which are balances. So it's like a trial balance that they've given us that appear in the books of Argon Traders as at the 28th of February 2022. So a list of different account names with the balances in those accounts. And take note, if you've got your question paper in front of you, you'll see with those amounts that they've written down there, they haven't indicated which ones are credits or which ones are debits. And they've done that deliberately because in this question, we are testing to see whether you can identify correctly which element of the financial statements each of those accounts belongs in. So if you have a look at question 2.1, we've got the 5 elements: assets, equity, liabilities, expenses, and income. And you have to be able to identify for each of those items which category they fall or element they fall under. So for your answer, the layout of your answer to this question, they have said here, prepare a table in your answer booklet. So a table going across your page with a column for each of those 5 elements. And then you will start at the beginning of the list of the accounts, and you will start with vehicles. And then you will take vehicles and you will write vehicles in one of those columns. No amounts needed, just the name of the account must go under one of those 5 columns. When you've done that, you go down, the next one is capital, and you take capital and then you put that next under one of those columns. So each of these accounts on this list will only belong in one column. Each account, it can only be an asset, an equity, a liability, an expense, or an income. It can never be more than one. And if you do put the name under more than one column, you'll get 0 for that question because you have to make a choice, okay? Just one. You can't guess 2 and then hope one of them's correct and you'll get the mark for that. So for question 2, this is from Learning Unit 2. You'll find the information for question 2 in Learning Unit 2. And this is kind of important information here in your textbooks. Again, this information is in your textbooks. Go and read the text. When I say the text, all of the content, all about the accounting equation, that starts from page 26 in your textbook. It is important that you read that and you understand that. And then go and have a look also at the example 2.7 in your textbooks, which is on the expanded accounting equation. So remember, the normal accounting equation, and I'm going to type this in the chat box, is assets equals owner's equity minus liabilities. The basic accounting equation is that. And when we talk about the expanded accounting equation, we say assets equals, and then owner's equity is then expanded into capital minus drawings plus, sorry, I'm just typing this quickly, income minus expenses, and then that minus liabilities. I just need to put some brackets around here. I'll be with you in 1 second. Okay, so in the chat box, you can see the basic accounting equation, A equals O minus L, and the expanded accounting equation, A equals, open brackets, capital minus drawings, close brackets, plus, open brackets, income minus expenses, close brackets, minus liabilities. Hi, Blessing. Nice to see you online, love. Let me just see what your question is. You're not sure if maybe you didn't download the right assignment. It doesn't look like the assignment you've got on hand. Oh, that's interesting. I hope it is the right one because I've got this assignment and they've given me the memorandum already, and I know it is the right one. Where did you download the assignment from? Can you remember? Do you know? I'm not too sure what to say about that. From the course profile. Okay, Blessing, I'm pretty sure that I have uploaded the assignment document in more resources. I'm just trying to think for this module if I've done that. But let's go and double check. Can you perhaps, Blessing, can you perhaps email the version of the assignment that you've got to me, and then I can double check that with the national office just to go and see if there's an error perhaps with the students and you've got a different one. Let me just give you my email is hashington@rii.ac.za. Okay, and I'll double check on that. I'm pretty sure this one that I've got is correct because, as I say, they've emailed me the answer sheet as well, and it matches up with this one that I've got. Thank you for letting me know, because it's always just as well to check that. Okay. All right, so I'm going to carry on with these questions as we've got them here. And then I will go and have a look at what you send me, Blessing, either after we finish off this evening or otherwise tomorrow morning, and then I'll investigate for you. Okay, so expanded account and equation, then question 2.6 in your textbooks has got a table categorizing accounts that is very similar to this question 2.1 that you need to do. So if you go and have a look at question 2.6 in your textbooks, you'll be able to see how what a question like this looks like with a question and a solution. And then a very helpful kind of cheat sheet is the chart of accounts on page 53 in your textbooks. That's also will give you a good idea, a lot of help in doing this question 2.1. Then your question 2.2. Okay, so remember 2.1, you're just going to write the name of the account under each of those columns, only the name. Then question 2.2 wants you to take the balances. So in other words, all the accounts that you wrote down under assets, all the accounts you wrote down under equity, etc. And then for all the accounts you wrote down under assets, they want you to give a rand total of the total non-current assets and a total for the total current assets. So again, in your answer sheet, don't just write down the value of the total. You must do a summary of the account name with the amount next to it, which is your workings, and then the total underneath that. So you will list all of the non-current asset accounts, one underneath each other with the amounts, name with the amount next to it, underneath that name with the amount next to it, and then a total non-current assets. And then you'll do the same for each of those 5 totals that they have requested in 2.2. And then the last one, they want you to do the little calculation of owner's equity. So they want you to work out the value of owner's equity. So that's a really good, a really nice question. And there are plenty of questions in your textbook where they have asked in the required for the students to work out owner's equity. So you can go and take a look there and find questions, the similar questions that show you what to do. Then the question 2.3 in the question paper, those last 2 questions for question 2.3, you must reference those 2 because those are also theory questions. So just read that carefully and make sure you reference. Okay, all right, just give me 1 second. Okay, question 3. So question 3, this one is on learning units 3 and 4. They say learning units 3, but I think if I'm not mistaken, there's a little bit of learning unit 4 in there as well, but it's mostly learning unit 3, VAT and source documents. So let me just scratch out learning unit 4. VAT and source documents is the majority of this question. So again, the sections in your textbook that will be helpful to you are section 3.1 and section 3.2. What is VAT and how does the VAT system work? That starts on page 77. You must read that before you go through and do the VAT questions. Then question 3.6 in your textbook is very similar to question 3.1 on your paper for VAT calculations. So go and have a look at that question, and that will show you exactly how you should present your question 3.1. Then in the textbook, section 3.3, VAT supplier categories on page 81. This is a hugely important section in your textbooks, both for this assignment and for all the work that you're going to do in 5121 and 5122 when you do accounting 2A and accounting 2B, because in all the learning units after learning unit 3, so right from learning unit 4, when we start working in the journals, the cash books, and then the credit journals, etc., you have to be able to do VAT calculations, and you have to know the VAT category for each transaction type, so that you know whether you are allowed to claim VAT or not, and whether VAT is applicable or not, and then do your VAT calculations. So in the last that we had, I did upload some worksheets for you guys to practice your VAT and your markup and gross margin calculations. And I just want to say, I see a couple of students said they couldn't open those documents, or the link didn't work. So when you have got documents linked in an announcement, if you click on the link in the email that you receive, you won't be able to open the documents. You must go log on to Learn and go to the announcement, and then on the announcement page, click on the blue links, and then it will open the document and you can download them. It's just one of those quirks. It's like a security issue, so that people can't access documents through the email. You have to go into Learn to access the documents there. Then section 3.5 in the textbook, source documents on page 85, that's important. And section 3.7, the VAT return on page 100, you also need to read and understand that section for one of the questions. Okay, Blessy, no problem. This is being recorded, so that you'll be able to listen to the rest of this recording as well. Okay, no worries. Yeah, and I'll get back to you about your assignment, the version that you've got. And then in question 3 in your assignment, it's only question 3.4 that needs to be referenced. So your question 3.1 and 3.2 are tables and calculations. Question 3.3 is a table where you're going to write down a term with a letter next to it. So only question 3.4 is a theory question, so you must reference that. You must tell us where you found that information. And question 3.5 are also calculations that you've got to do. And so that also does not need to be referenced. Then your last question in the paper, question 4, is for 25 marks. This question is from Learning Unit 4, recording cash transactions. So this one then involves the actual first time that you guys are entering transactions into journals. Learning Unit 4 is just your cash journal, so cash book receipts, cash book payments, and petty cash journal. And in this question here, question 4.1, they've asked you to record the transactions given above in the cash book receipts for the month of January. So you will take note on your question paper that they've said the columns you will need are, and then they've listed day details, bank, and output VAT, sales, sundry accounts, and cost of sales. So if you go to your Learning Unit 4, page, let me just see if I can find this quickly, page 106, they introduce the journals, and then on page 112 in your textbooks, they give you the structure of the cash book receipts. And there you can see exactly what a cash book receipts looks like, with a key for each of those columns telling you what information we enter into each of those columns in the cash book. So you'll see on page 112, they've got document day details folio, and then analysis of receipts, and then bank, and then output VAT, and then they've got a few others, and then cost of sales is a separate column that goes over on the right-hand side all by itself. So that's an example. So that's the format, the structure that you'll use on page 112, but your column headings will be as per the amounts that they've given, the descriptions that they've given you on your question paper. So from the left, the column heading, the columns from the left-hand side on your answer sheets, you will have day details, bank, output VAT, sales, sundry accounts, and then on the very right-hand side, cost of sales. And they make the note at the bottom, they say you don't need to include a column for document numbers, folios, or analysis of receipts. So those three, although you'll find them in the structure of the cash book receipts on page 112, in your answer book, you don't have to include that. And then for 4.2, they want you to prepare the general ledger account using the information provided above, as well as the cash book receipts that you prepared. And they want you to do what we call the T account, general ledger account for bank and for petty cash. So if you have a look at the lesson plan on the screen, I have included here, so this is section 4.3.2, cash book receipt structure, page 112. Example 4.1, drafting the cash journals, on page 117 in your textbooks. This example 4.1 is very important. So this example gives us some information first off, and then a nice long list of transactions going all the way through to page 120. Sorry, to the end of page 119, and then on page 120 and page 121, using that list of transactions, they have then drawn up a completed cash book receipts, cash book payments, and petty cash journal. So what you've been requested to do is just the cash book receipts. So if you go to page 120 in your textbooks, you will then see exactly what your cash book receipts should look like using the columns column headings they've given you, and working back from the transactions on page 118 and 119 to that cash book receipts on page 120, you'll be able to see exactly how you should enter those transactions in the cash book. And then pay the last one, 4.2, section 4.4 in your textbooks, posting to the general ledger on page 123. That's the section that you need to study. And then example 4.2, posting the cash journals. So this is where you then take your cash journal, in this case your cash book receipts, and you post it into the general ledger. So when they say posting the cash journals, what they mean is posting the cash journals into the general ledger. So example 4.2 which starts on page 126. Those are the T accounts, the general ledger accounts. So in that example, go and look for the bank account and the petty cash account. The bank account is on page 127, and our petty cash account is on page 128 in example 4.2. And then you can use those examples to draw up your bank account and your petty cash account for the general ledger from your cash book receipts. So example 4.1 and example 4.2 will guide you through doing both parts of question 4 in that section. Okay, so that is then the lesson plan, and I'm now just going to quickly pop up the assignment document itself. And then I will just give you any guidelines on things to look out for in the questions itself, and making sure that you read the question properly, that you interpret it, you understand what they're asking you. So let's just do a quick whip through this. So here we've got question 1.1. They have given you a little case study, and it's very important. Remember, they've given us a case study. We know the name of the person that's got this little business. She has approached us to give some advice, and our answers are going to be the advice that we are giving her, as if we were giving her the advice. And so that's how you must word your answers. So in the first 1.1, recreate the table below, complete the detailing. There's some funny wording. It says recreate the table below in your answer book. And I would say that this word over here, let me just scratch that out over there, that should be, and then complete, detailing the comparisons between a sole trader, partnership, and profit company with respect to the following aspects. And then these are, and have a look at the marks. They have given us 3 marks for each of those. So obviously legal personality, 1 mark for the sole trader, 1 mark for the partnership, 1 mark for the profit company. So you don't have to write a whole long paragraph, but just something that shows that you understand the difference in what the legal personality is of it, or who the legal personality is in a sole trader, in a partnership, and in a profit company. And then what are the differences in the startup procedures between a sole trader, a partnership, and a profit company? Okay. What is the ownership in a sole trader, a partnership, and a profit company? In other words, who are the owners? What does it look like? And then for 1.2, your friend that is wanting to start this business requires financing. So they give you a scenario about her father and the bank. And then from the scenario above, identify 3 users, and take note, guys, that this is USERS, users of the financial information, and explain how they will benefit from the accounting information that they will be supplied. So the accounting information means the financial statements, basically, that we give them, income statements and balance sheets, etc. Okay. So this is from the scenario above. Identify 3 users. So in other words, we've got characters involved, people and businesses involved in the scenario. So of the people and the businesses in the scenario, choose 3 of them, users, and explain how each of those individuals or businesses will benefit from any accounting information that is supplied to them. So let me just have a look at the marks. Okay. So the way these marks have been allocated in the memo, they've asked for 3 users. They have given us 4 marks per user. So 4 times 3 is 12. So there are 12 possible marks available in this question's answer. And then obviously we will mark you up to a maximum of 10 marks. Okay. So 12 available marks, which is 3 users times 4 marks each, making up the 12, but your total mark for the question will be capped at 10 marks. So question 2.1, here are the balances. So as I said, take note that these balances, they have not indicated whether they are debits or credits. They haven't put brackets around any of them, because you have to go and identify which of those would have brackets around it so that you can identify correctly whether each of those accounts, which of these categories each of them belongs to. So remember, for 2.1, you're going to draw up this table in your book and then write down the name of the accounts. Every single one of those accounts on the list must appear under one of these columns. And there's a half a mark allocated for each of those account names, making up 7.5 marks for that part of the question. And then for 2.2, using the balances on that list above that they gave you, calculate the following: the total value of non-current assets. So you will write down on your answer sheet, if you've identified 5 non-current assets, you will write down whatever the name is with the amount next to it, each of those 5 listed underneath each other, and then the total. Don't just write down the total, and please don't just write down a whole long line of amounts with a total, because that's absolutely meaningless if you haven't given me the name of the account together with the amount. So non-current assets, current assets, non-current liabilities, and current liabilities. So 4 lists with totals. And then lastly, they want you to give us the total owner's equity. So by just rearranging the accounting equation, we get owner's equity is equal to assets minus liabilities. And above here, you will have calculated your total assets. You will have calculated your total liabilities. So this calculation here, you must use the totals that you've done here. So you'll add those 2 together, total assets, minus, and you'll add those 2 together, total liabilities, equals owner's equity. And this one, as I said, is a little bit of a theory question. You just read the question and then the required interpret it correctly in your own words, etc. And then remember that should be referenced. So our question 3 is our VAT chapter question. And as I said, on my piece of paper here, your question 3.6 in your textbooks is very similar to this question. So go and have a look at that, and that will show you exactly how you should go about answering that. It's best to replicate this table in your answer book. Fill in all of these amounts, but then maybe just do these ones that are wherever they are blank. So each of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are six blank spaces in the table. You need to calculate show me your calculation and the amount for each of those 6 blank items. So replicate the table and put them in on the table itself. I think that will be the easiest way to do that, because they haven't given them numbers or letters. Assume a VAT rate of 15%. And then complete the table below by marking the correct block at each supplier listed. So again, you must only mark one block. Each of these will only fall under one VAT supplier category type. And this is a very important section in your textbook. You read through that whole section thoroughly. Make sure you understand it. You will be using that a lot in assignments, questions, transactions, and definitely in the exam. So you do need to make sure you study that properly. Then this is just to match the column. So you're just going to write down the number down the left-hand side underneath each other on your answer book. And then next to number 1, you will write down one of these letters. And then underneath that, you'll write number 2. And next to number 2, you will just write one of those letters. You don't need to write any more than that. And that obviously does not need to be referenced. Then this is a theory question for 3 marks. And as I said on the lesson plan, you do need to reference this one. This comes straight from one of your learning objectives. So please don't forget, always pay attention to what your learning objectives are for each of the learning units. And that will always tell you what they're going to ask you in assignments and exams. And then following information has been provided. Assume that all amounts include 15% VAT. Okay, so these are the VAT inclusive amounts. And then required, using the information provided, calculate the amount of the VAT only that would be payable or refundable when this business, Beryl Traders, did their VAT return. And on the lesson plan, I have given you the reference in your textbooks for where to go and find in your textbooks at section 3.7 in your textbooks on page 100, where the VAT return is discussed. And again, please show me your calculation. It's safest to do that so that if you've got something wrong, I can also see where you are going wrong, and I can also be able to tell you what you've done wrong if your calculation is wrong and you're getting the wrong answers for your VAT. And then last of all, question 4. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so question 4. This question is then our cash books chapter question, learning unit 4, recording cash transactions. And they have given us a description about a business. Zansi Couture is owned by fashion designer Petro Stevens. They are a registered VAT vendor. So remember, that's important information, because as soon as we know that a business is registered for VAT, we know that they will be having to add VAT on to all of their sales amounts before they charge their customers, because they'll be obliged to charge their customers VAT if they're a registered VAT vendor. And it also says they only trade with other registered VAT vendors. So that means that all of the purchases that they make from their suppliers, those suppliers are also registered VAT vendors. So by that, we also then know that any amounts we purchase from our suppliers will also be VAT inclusive. Again, taking note of your VAT categories, that if anything that we purchase is exempt or 0 rated, there won't be any VAT included in the amount. And if that particular type of supply is a non-allowable supply, there will be VAT included, but we will not be allowed to claim the VAT on our VAT return. So 15% VAT, all amounts are inclusive of VAT unless VAT is not applicable. So VAT would not be applicable if the amount was exempt, zero rated, or a non-allowable supply. The business uses the perpetual inventory system. So right at the end of Learning Unit 4, no, not Learning Unit 4. Sorry, let me just find the right place for you guys. I always lose this one. Sorry, I'm just taking it's further back than I thought it was. Oh, okay. So right at the end of Learning Unit 2, on page 69 in your textbooks, you've got a section called An Introduction to Inventory Systems. And that is where they discuss perpetual and periodic inventory systems for the first time. So it is important because the type of inventory system that we are using can affect the account names that we are going to debit and credit for certain transactions that we do, particularly for our purchase transactions when we are buying things from companies. So you go and have a look at that section on page 69 and make sure you understand that, so that you understand what you have to do in terms of perpetual inventory systems. All cash received is deposited daily, okay? Which means that we're basically saying the cash is going straight into the bank account every day. And then we've got this list of transactions for the month of January. So these transactions all took place. These dates are dates in January. And at the beginning of January, these were the opening balances in our bank account, in our general ledger, and our petty cash account in our general ledger. Okay, so these will be your starting balances in those two accounts. Then these transactions took place, which will increase or decrease these balances. And then you will then work out what the new balance is in your bank and your petty cash as at the end of January after these transactions have taken place. So they have only asked us to complete the cash book receipts from these transactions. And because we will only be completing the cash book receipts and not the cash book payments, they have given us the total for the bank column in the cash book payments in the month of January. And we need that when we have to go and compile our general ledger. We need that for the question 4.2, that information. Okay, so here's the description of the columns. This is, remember, go and have a look at the layout of your cash book in your textbook, the reference I've given you, and these are the columns that we need. The columns will be in your textbook, like a cash book, will be columns from the left to the right, and cost of sales is always the very rightmost column in your cash book receipts, and then also in your debtors journal and debtors allowances journal when we do that in Learning Unit 5. You don't have to include document number, folio, or analysis of receipts columns. And then these are the two T accounts that you need to do. So remember the T account, I've given you the reference as to where to find the example for that. We call it a T account because our general ledger accounts look like a T in the textbook, and the name of the account goes at the top. So in this case, we've got bank, for instance. And then any amounts that you are going to debit to the bank account, you'll write down on the left-hand side, and any amounts that you're going to credit to the bank account, you will write down on the right-hand side of the account. And remember, you have to balance the account, this T account off at the end, and those rules for balancing the account. You'll find all the information about the T accounts on page 45 in your textbooks. Okay. petty accounts in the general ledger. And that's where they give you your balancing rules as well. When they say balance the account at the end of the month, they just mean you need to close it off where you are telling us what the closing total in that account is at the end of the month as well. Sorry, I'm just looking for the balancing. I really must write this at the front of the textbook because I'm always looking for it and I find it in the right place. Sorry, guys. Okay, I can't find it right now. But I'm sure going through your textbooks, you've come across that, the rules for balancing. Okay, I'm going to write this here, the rules for balancing general ledger accounts. Go and revise that from your textbooks, and then that will make sure that you draw up these accounts correctly. Then also don't forget those examples that I've given you. You'll be able to see exactly how what that bank account and the petty cash account must look like, with its opening balances down to its closing balances at the end of the month as well. Okay, so that is all the information that I have got and the assistance I can give you now, and that hopefully is going to help you to tackle this and know what to do and where to find everything and how you should go about doing it, which examples and questions are going to be helpful to you. So while you're working on your assignment over this next week, remember, if you come across any questions, any problems, something you're not sure of, or what you should do, please send me a message or an email and ask me straight away so that I can help you and that you don't get stuck. So that also means start working on your assignment in good time so that if you do come across a question, it's not late at night on the last night before the due date and I'm not available to answer questions. Okay. All right, guys, so I'm going to end the recording here and just so that it's not too long, and upload it for you guys. And best of luck with the assignment. And remember, please, guys, ask questions. That is one of the ways to make sure that you get good marks for the assignment. If there's anything that you're doubtful with, then give me a shout and ask. All right, guys, thanks very much. So until next time, I'll see you again next collab. Thanks, guys. Bye.